Good morning, everybody. I see that we have people coming in right now, which is always wonderful, given that it's 8 a.m. in the morning on a Monday. So start your day off right with me, I guess. Just checking here to make sure that I'm coming through. And I should be here real soon. I'm just checking the monitor off to the side, so bear with me for just a minute, and then we'll say hello to everybody that's here and get on with things. Yep, everything's working fine. Okay, that is good to know. Well, welcome, everybody. I hope you've got your coffee. I hope you got a pot on, because I have a feeling this could be long today. So let's do a quickie rundown about first let's just see who's here, okay? So right off the bat, first one here is my friend Caroline. And, oh, Sean's here, the guy who sews. This is unusual. I didn't expect to see Sean today. Are you off today, Sean? Do you not have to work, or just it's early enough that you don't start work yet? And Shadowwind is here, and Judy. She's out working on making her coffee. Carmen is here. Good morning, Carmen. I don't know, Carmen. Have we seen you before on like one of Stephen and Walter lives or not? I'm sorry if I don't remember, but then again, I have notes down here showing me my name for the day. So yeah, old age, not fun. Excuse me, a little morning cough here. It's called the Quilter's Hack. Dubrovka is here, and Gloria. And Dubrovka says it will be another sunny day in Timmins, 18 degrees C. Well, I think you're going to have a hotter day than we are. Our high is only going to be 17, but I'm not complaining. We've had rain, we've had snow. It's nice to have a little bit of sunlight as well. Heather is here, and let's see. I'm just looking here. Nightbot is doing things because I didn't change it, but it's okay. Sean says, you made the Wendy block already. Very impressive. Well, Sean, there's a reason I did it already. It's because it's not due until next month, but half of next month will be in Japan. So I want to get a little ahead of the game because, as you well know, and as many people do, the cutting takes you forever. And we're going to talk about the realistic side of doing an Art East kilt. Okay, coffee. Quilt. Not a kilt, not a kit. Quilt. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, actually. Emily is here. Good morning, Emily. And Kat is here as well. And Sean says, I'm working from home today, so can hang for a few. Okay, that's great, Sean. Ruth is here. Hi, Ruth. And Carmen says, yes, new to your shows. Well, great, Carmen. I hope I don't scare you off. And Joan is here as well. And I'm sure a few more people will be joining us as time goes by. I realize it's Monday morning. It is early. But I said I was going to do these once a month, the last Monday of every month, and I am. And quite frankly, I enjoy doing them. I do. So, before we go too much further, an announcement. Pop-Up Sew Day this coming Saturday, May the 2nd. The link is in the show notes below, and those of you that are on my mailing list, you just got an email this morning. If you haven't checked your email, you should, because the link is there as well. Now, I told you last time I had made it into a permanent link, but I think I screwed up. I'm not sure, so you may want to double check. Get the link either that's in the email I've sent out to you on the mailing list this morning, or the one that's in the show notes in all of my videos this week, including this one. So yeah, just double check that because it could be different. Next Pop-Up Sew Day, well, it could be a while. That's why I'm having it this weekend, because the weekend after this one coming up, we leave for Japan. We'll be flying to Japan on Sunday, May the 10th, so just advance notice. Our last Stephen and Walter live, at least in this country and in this hemisphere, will be this coming Sunday. After that, we will be doing videos on maybe a daily basis. It's going to depend on several factors. One, the technology and how things work, although we've been doing some exploring with that, and it seems that Japan, the system that we will be on, is a 5G system, and it looks like it's extremely fast and extremely reliable, which is good. We do have to pay for that. We're buying a SIM card, an eSIM card, I guess, for our phones. That actually, it's not that expensive. I think it might work out for the time that we're there about $80 Canadian, which really, you know, that's not bad when you're on the other side of the world, kind of thing. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do, well, we'll post videos most days, you know, short videos about what we did that day. And they'll be here on the channel. And in fact, I will establish a playlist for those called Stephen and Walter in Japan. And we will try to do a few live ones as well. But then again, you have to remember, we'll have to do those lives probably late at night, Japan time, because we're going to be about 12 hours ahead of Eastern time. So we'll see how that all works out then. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And a few more people have joined us. So let's see who's here. We have, I said Joanne is here. Palomino Girl is here. Good morning from sunny Ithaca, New York. I can only stay a few minutes because it's gorgeous outside, but I want to pop in for the first coffee with Stephen. Cheers, everyone. Okay, well, that's great, Palomino. Ruth says, just notified that my first RD quilt kit is out for delivery. I'm ready to cut. Yeah, you may want a lot of coffee for that. Jen is here, and Susan is here, and Sue Norfleet is here. And yeah, okay, so more people are joining us. So rundown of what we're going to talk about today, but I will deviate from the plan because I'm going to be playing off of whatever you say in the comments or any questions you might have or that kind of thing. I am going to do, to start off with, I am going to do about a little discussion about the Art East kit. And I want you to know that this is by no means criticism of Art East or of John. I believe in John. I support John, as you well know. He's come to 2 of my retreats to talk about his plans and what he's doing, his products, and I intend to have him again at the next retreat. And we'll talk more about the next retreat too. But I am going to do a rundown, which, well, I'll explain it then when I do it. I'm going to look at some comments from the past week that I thought are worth looking at and talking about. We're going to look at what's been happening on the political scene here in Canada. Don't worry, we're not going to get too political, okay? And we're going to talk about what's been happening here at home as well. I have a new product review. I have something about Amazon I want to talk to you about that you may or may not be aware of. And highlights from the past week's videos and what's coming up. And of course, we always have to do the weather segment and the grow light segment as well. But this time when we're talking about the grow lights, we're going to talk about our plans for this summer's container garden growing. And we're going to look at the 3D printer. I have been having a major problem with my original Bamboo Labs X1C 3D printer, but we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about some key trends in 3D printing, especially in a very controversial issue that is arising more and more these days as more and more people get into 3D printing. And that's the whole question of sustainability and recycling. And that, are we putting more plastic into landfill? And, you know, should we be doing that? So those are the things that I thought we would talk about. But as I said, I will go with the flow, whatever you want to talk about. So let's see. Lily has joined us. Good morning, Lily. And Jen says, it's so nice to watch live at 8 p.m. my time. Yes, Jen is in, I believe, Perth, Australia. So yeah, it's nighttime there for them. And Maureen as well is in Australia. Say Maureen, she says, Jen says to Maureen, but she's on the West Coast. And I think, Maureen, if I'm right, I think you're in Queensland. Not absolutely sure. The other Jen is here as well. Good morning, the other Jen. I have a lot of people with the same name. Notice that? So let's talk a little bit about the Art East kits. Now, I did show you what you get, but the reason I'm going to talk about these right now is because there are many of you out there that are still maybe not aware of the Art East Quilting Company, which is a Canadian company located out in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton to be exact. And John and Matt, they are the owners of the company, and John does the designing, Matt does the shipping. I don't know if Matt has much to do with design either. He probably, John probably bounces ideas off of him all the time. But the thing about this is that first thing that puts people off might be the cost of a kit. Well, this is what you get in the kit. This is not a pattern you are sewing. This is an experience. It is a trip that you are going on in this. And I think this is what really makes the Art East Quilting Company stand out above any other kind of sew-alongs, block of the month, that kind of thing, or even other kits. There's been a lot of thought and effort and creativity put into these kits by John, and you can see it here reflected in just the boxing of the kits. You have the box that shows you the finished quilt on the outside. That is a great box. It's not something you're going to throw in recycling. I got hiccups. Always do. Drink my coffee too fast. It is something you're going to want to hang on to after you finish the project for storing whatever you want to store in it. It has a magnetic clasp to it. It's great. I also got what's called the Qube kit, which is the finishing kit that includes some threads, backing fabric, etc. And the little one that looks like a little treasure chest, notice the theme here, all of Peter Pan. It has the acorn pressing solution, glues, and all that kind of thing in there as well. What did this kit cost me? Over $700 for everything you see here. But you want to know $700 Canadian, okay? But well worth it. And here's why. First of all, you can see the pattern book that comes with it, okay? This is the detailed instructions for every one of the blocks in this quilt, the cutting instructions, what fabrics you use. And this is the fabric set that comes with it too, all very nicely bundled up, all labeled the whole bit. Plus there's a few other goodies in there, some patches, there's a little needle binder that's really cute as well. If you were to go out and buy or try to buy all the fabrics for this, you could, but you want to know something? For my sanity, I think it's worth the money to get the fabric with the kit rather than having to pick your own colors from this, because there's a lot. There is a lot, and you can see it also comes in two colorways. I got Dusk, which is the one that's being shown on the cover of the book, and this little one down here, that's Dawn. Now here's what it looks like in the caboodle. The caboodle, you got a notebook, which is very handy because you may want to make a few notes for yourself as you work through this. This is the backing fabric, 3 meters of that. John threw in, I don't know if this is in everybody's or not, but John threw in a couple of t-shirts, one for Walter, one for me, as well as I think a thank you because, you know, we support them as well, which is really nice of them. They don't have to do that, but they did. That's, well, we'll talk about how I feel about John in a second. Some threads and needles, other stickers, the whole bit. And a little button here says I'm on Team Dusk. So, you know, you're getting a lot for the money. So the initial sticker shock may get you. Now, you can buy the pattern separate for this, as I said, but you're still going to have to buy fabric. And the amount of fabric that's in this quilt, it's a fair amount. So it's still going to cost you one way or the other. And I said, if you want to keep your sanity, then I would invest in the kit. He's also, though, gone beyond just this. He's also, well, he also has another kit you can add on, and I highly recommend you get this as well, unless you already have these products. The Acorn Precision Piecing. Excellent products. I've been using them for a while. These are another Canadian product, and this is what I like about John's business model. He supports, as much as he possibly can, other Canadian businesses as well. And that's why I feel it's important, especially given this time in history right now. I think it's important for me to also support John. I want you to know, John does not know I'm doing this. and I do not have an affiliate link. I do not get any kickback from John for doing this or anything. What you hear from me is my honest opinion about everything. But these products are excellent. If you want nice flat seams, I highly recommend the pressing solution. And I'm new to their glue. Well, I've had it for a while, but I've never really used it. John has put together videos, and that's another thing that's really nice when you buy into this kit. John has a community he has set up where people can share their finished products. He has contests. He has extremely helpful videos. Videos take a long time to make, believe me, and they are well done. He has left nothing to chance. I would say if you're a brand new absolute beginner to quilting, don't get one of these kits, but get one of his patterns that's less involved to start with to get a feel for it. But if you are at least a confident beginner and up, then you shouldn't have any problem with doing any of John's kits. But he has videos, very good videos. And as I said, he has contests and prizes, and his prizes are substantial. He has a lot of incentive to help you get through this project, because let's be honest, this is not a project that you decide, oh, I want a quilt to give to a new baby in the family, I'll just throw this together in a week. That's not going to happen. In fact, this whole kit that he's doing now, the second star to the right, is a 9-month project because he's doing it as a block of the month. Now, you can work ahead if you got the kit. You already have all the patterns, and I have worked ahead because of going to Japan next month. But yeah, he has spread it out because John does not suffer from under any delusions that there is a lot of cutting, and that's your first hurdle in all of this. I think that's your first hurdle in doing all of this, is the cutting. And then the piecing. And here you go. Here's an example of one of his diagrams. Plus he shows you pictures of each step within each block as well. But you can see, look, how many little pieces there are just in this part of Peter. And Peter is made up of 3 panels, 3 blocks. So yeah, this is not something you want to rush. This is something you want to enjoy the journey. And part of that journey is the cutting. And John, as I said, is under no delusions that may not be part of the journey that people enjoy. But on his t-shirt, he kind of sums it up with cut, 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 cut. So yeah. Here's an example. These were the pieces for Wendy. And yeah, you need to label them all. And John does provide you with some stickers, and he has a file on the community site where you can print out all these letters. I didn't realize that until after I had done this with Peter and with Wendy, but I have learned from it wasn't a mistake, an omission, I guess, and so now I don't have to write out my own. But yeah, a lot of pieces here, organizing it. And then of course, this is the start of this. Now, as I said, I have Wendy and I have Peter done. You're going to say, but they're not sewn together, the blocks. No, they're not, because they have to go together in a certain way, and there's some other pieces that have to go in here with some of the other characters as well. But it's coming along very nicely. I've already made a mistake. I used the wrong fabric for Wendy's hair, but I thought that I cut the same fabric as I did for Peter's hair, and here in the picture anyways, and on my wall, it looks different. So I'm gonna have to check that. Maybe I wasn't wrong, but I thought I was wrong. Anyways, that is another realistic factor about John's patterns, that yeah, you will get mixed up. This is why you shouldn't, you really shouldn't, rush this, because you will make mistakes. But it's not the end of the world. I want you to know that. If you use the wrong color, except maybe in the background colors, but if you use the wrong color in some of the pieces of the outfits or of the characters, you can recover from that fairly easily. Don't get frustrated, because the journey is well worth it. And And I just want to say a personal note about John and Matt. They are wonderful human beings. They really are. They are very, very generous. As I mentioned, there's lots of prizes to keep you motivated. There's lots of videos. He's has videos almost every week. He has a live. I can't always make every one of his lives that he does, but he has interesting guests on as well. The whole experience is worth the moments of frustration you may have with, i.e., the cutting. Some tips I have learned as I've worked through this: label everything. Do not skip labeling. And make sure you're cutting accurately. There are a few pieces I didn't cut quite right for one reason or another, and started sewing them on and realized, oh, this one's too short or this one's too long. They were easy fixes, but yeah, you don't need that frustration, so take your time. I would suggest you don't try to cut all the pieces for the entire kit before you start to sew, because you'll never get to the sewing part. Cut one section at a time, and John recommends this as well. I would even go as far to say break up your cutting in even smaller units of work. The pattern is set out in such a way that you can do that. Unless you really, really enjoy cutting, you'll want to space it out. Again, you got to give yourself time. So overall, I think although the sticker price might get you if you bought the whole kit, it is well worth it, for all the reasons I've already mentioned. Okay, so let's go up here and see people are saying things. I think had a few more people come in. Let's see. Just bear with me for a minute. I'm scrolling down. There's been a lot of comments. Just popped up on me. This is the problem with the chat. It moves faster than me. Let's see. Lily says that she is working on the Art East right now, the puffin quilt. And yes, there's a lot of cutting, but I'm totally enjoying it. Can't wait to finish. And the thing about it, as I said before, this is like a journey, a trip. And when you're putting the pieces together, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, but the images start to emerge. And when that moment happens, you're filled with a lot of joy, I can tell you, because you really feel like you've got something accomplished. Joanne, hi Joanne. She is working on Team Dusk as well, and she's going to finish Peter today. And she's been using the pressing solution for a few years. Love it. Yep, I do too. And I'm so proud that's a Canadian product. Jen says she was tempted to buy this kit, but couldn't work it into her budget, and she's not fond of cutting. As I said, it is pricey. It is pricey. But it's worth it. Dubravka, she loves the acorn pressing solution and the glue. She got it from John on the first shipping. Mary's here. Hi, Mary. And Maureen says the pressing solution doesn't seem to be available in Australia. Can get it on Etsy, but $90 shipping to get it from the USA. Yeah, it's probably because it's a liquid. And yeah, I can't. I buy it at in big gallon jug of it at a quilt store that's out of my area a little bit by about an hour, but I go there when I need it and I get it that way, because although John does ship it in the smaller bottles, so you might want to try. I don't know if the shipping would be any cheaper, but go to John's website and order it directly from John. Maybe it's cheaper. I have no idea. Palomino Girl says, I was thinking that in sewing the pieces together, you shouldn't be listening to an audio book. It depends on how well you can multitask. I need to put full concentration into the cutting. I don't put anything on. Okay, that sounds bad. I don't have anything playing in the background because I am easily distracted, and that's when I make mistakes. Joanna's here. Hi, Joanna. Sue says, John and Matt provide the best customer service in the quilting industry, helpful and kind. Yes, they are. So never be afraid to reach out to them if you need some help. Dubrovka says, Maureen, try from John's site. Yeah, that's what I was just saying too. And Jackie's here. Hi, Jackie. So anyways, I want to talk about that because, you know, sometimes people show you the end product of things, but they don't talk about the process and if they had any problems. And you know me, the reason I have the Idiot Quilter on here is because I want to show you when I make mistakes and how I get around them, because that's real. It doesn't matter how many years you've been quilting or sewing. There's always something to learn, and we all make mistakes, and it's not the end of the world. There's usually ways to overcome those mistakes. Okay, so let's move away from this discussion and let's have some more coffee. I hope you've got your coffee. And I'm putting it over here in the side because I have a little warmer, a coffee warmer. Best investment for 10 bucks on Amazon that I ever did, because I have a tendency to forget about my coffee and it goes stone cold. So it's a waste. This keeps it nice and warm all the time. Okay, so comments from last week. Let's take a look. Now, Charlotte wrote, the retreat was wonderful. Thank you for a wonderful day. I got a whole lot of sewing done. I've ordered 2 of John's patterns. John is a wonderful presenter and very generous, supplied prizes and a discount code. Yes, John did. On my retreat, one reason why I love having John, no, it's not the total reason, but it helps. He provided, if you weren't at the retreat, coupon codes for $25 each and one for $50 each off of whatever you bought from his site, which I thought was very, very generous. And he also gave everybody a coupon code for 15% off for a limited time on whatever you bought from his site too. And I like to support John because, you know, as I've already said, he's Canadian. And for those of us that are Canadian, buy Canada, buy Canadian. Yeah. Angelica says Doug Ford wasn't what. Okay, this is referring to, and we'll come to that in a bit, but Doug Ford is the premier of our province, just bought a jet for himself for, you know, province business. He just returned it because of the backlash he got from everybody in government and from the general constituents and everything like that. Good to know that he listened to that. Doug Ford, I'll tell you this, I don't like him at all. I think he's a crook. I also think he's Trump in training. But this Angelica says, Doug Ford, wasn't his brother a mayor of Toronto and a cocaine addict? I keep thinking he's the same guy. Yes, he was the mayor of Toronto. And yeah, he was, I don't know if it was all cocaine, but he did it. He was into drugs and the whole bit. He's dead now. Well, you know, in the words of Betty Davis, when referring to Joan Crawford after she passed away, I was always told, never say anything bad about the dead. Joan Crawford, she's dead. Good. I will put that on Rob Ford as well, Doug Ford's brother. Yeah, okay, that may seem cruel and whatnot. He did have his supporters, but, well, luckily he wasn't my mayor because I don't live in Toronto, but yeah. Diana says, I'm 68, my husband is 70, and my disabled daughter's 50. This is the first year we have been refused the COVID shots. I believe Diana is in the UK. We cannot have them till 75 now, although we all have long-term health problems. Always get the flu shots, though. The shot are important, and our government needs to provide them because all citizens benefit, not just a few. Yes, and in Canada, we don't have that problem right now. However, there are an awful lot of senior citizens, 65 plus, my people, okay, who are not getting the COVID shot, the booster, or even a flu shot. That's a no-no, really. In our age bracket, our immune systems are not what they were when we were teenagers. And why are you putting yourself out there? If you're an active individual who leaves the house for any reason, you really need to protect yourself because you could get very, very sick. You could die. And our hospital system right now, thanks to Doug Ford, is suffering greatly. Overworked doctors, overworked nurses, not enough of them. He said he was going to eliminate hallway medicine. He has not. I'm surprised he has not pulled funding for the COVID shots and for flu shots. But we are lucky that we can at least get them for nothing. We just got a COVID shot a week and a half ago in our preparation for our flight to Japan and everything. I always get the flu shot. You've heard me talk about that before. I am a vaxxer. I believe in them. Science says it is a good thing. So you may differ in your opinion, and that is fine. You do you. But just remember that whatever you do may have an effect on those around you. And I don't think it's really fair for you to carry a disease and give it to another person, especially an elderly person, where it could put them in hospital or kill them. Yeah. And Rachel says, you should set up an Etsy shop. I think she's referring to when I said I have so many quilts, they're in bags. Bang, you know. I make them because I enjoy making them. After they're done, they get stored away. I take a picture, they get stored away, and there's where they sit until, you know, someday someone has to clean out my house, and who knows where those quilts will go. And the same with my 3D prints. And she says, or any quilt you don't want, set up an Etsy shop, or any quilts you don't want to keep, eBay for charity if you don't want to make money on them. Well, from my understanding of how Etsy works, there are just too many problems with Etsy. Etsy takes a fair amount of the money for their service in the whole bit. And I really don't want my quilts just going to any old charity. I want to know that these are going to be put to good use. And I've talked before about my experience with charities and how, yeah, they're not what they seem, many of them. So I don't know. I wish I had a bigger family, and I wish I had a family that appreciated quilts, because my family does not. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't got a clue. It's a dilemma, and my pile gets bigger. I probably have 60 to 70 quilts all over this house and in bags. Yeah. You know, and I've even gone as far as to think I'll hold my own private little quilt show and sale in my front lawn on a nice day. Put up clotheslines or something, hang them all out there in the breeze, kind of like, what's that place out in the west coast of the United States, Sisters, that do the outdoor quilt show every year, kind of a thing. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't have anybody show up. So I don't know. I get these fantasy ideas all the time. So anyways, those were some comments I wanted to share with you. Thank you for the comments, everybody. Please keep the comments coming in. I read them all, and I try to respond to most of them if there's something to respond to. And they give me ideas for all of the videos that Walter and I put up in a week, over a week's time. Let's back up here. Chris is here. Hi, Chris. The Naked Quilter. Oh, there is a guy. About a year or so ago, I found this guy, and he was I think the Naked Quilter. I think there's another one called the Bare Naked Quilter. It was kind of disturbing. Yeah, to say the least. Joanne says, I have a coffee warmer too for the same reason. Yeah, they're a good thing, and they're not that expensive, so what the heck. Gloria says, being a naked quilter could be dangerous. Dangerous, Chris. Oh, referring back to Chris there. Yeah, it could be. Rotary cutters. Not good. Greenland Katie's here. Hi, Greenland Katie. Maureen says, just checked, and the set Steven shows would be a $92 Australian, including shipping, so a bit expensive for me. Shame. Yeah, that's too bad. It is pricey. Actually, that acorn pressing solution stuff does tend to be a little bit pricey as well, but it's really good. Hi, Katie. And Rachel's here too. Hi, Rachel. Okay, so what's been happening at home and elsewhere? Let's flip to that. And I just heard Walter get in the shower upstairs. He's got a doctor's appointment this morning at 10 or something, I think he said. So On the political scene, the headlines, Canada-U.S. trade. Prime Minister Carney vows the U.S. will not dictate terms for trade negotiation despite demands for concessions. So here we go with the same old, same old. Trump has a list of demands before he wants to talk to us about the Kuzma thing. And our Carney is saying, our Prime Minister, and bully for him, I love this man, he's saying, no, you do not dictate terms. We don't have to negotiate with you that way. That's not negotiating. So, and Trump does not like Carney because Carney, probably out of all of the leaders in the world, is standing up to him. That's what you have to do with a bully. So, good thing for Carney. Airlines are cutting flights due to severe jet fuel shortages. Okay, yep. It's going to cause a lot of inconvenience, to say the least, for many people. Luckily, we bought our tickets for our flight to Japan way back early last fall. And we got them at the cheapest price we could. Right now, the same flight we're going on, which is pretty much full, Walter constantly checks, has doubled in price. So, yeah. But we've got ours. The only thing I'm worried about is, would they actually cancel or delay our flight? I don't think that will happen, but who knows? So, yeah, I won't be resting assured about this until we're actually in the air and on our way to Japan. Of course, then the question comes up, will we get back home? Could be an extended vacation. You never know with this fuel thing that's happening. Speaking of Doug Ford, Ontario Premier Doug Ford reversed a decision to buy private jets following public outcry, while other premiers face questions about their air travel. Yeah, he opened up a whole can of worms. However, it was stupid. He bought a jet saying that, you know, because Ontario is big. Yes, Ontario is a big province. It's bigger than Texas. Yep, in, you know, land mass. Probably less people than in Texas, but, you know, that's how Canada runs, right? We have a huge second largest land mass in the world, Canada, and we only have about 41, 42 million people as compared to the United States, which has, you know, over 330, 340 million people, about 10 times more than us. So he needs this to get up to the frozen north, like he goes there often. Not. Also, there are only 10% of the airplane runways in this province, Ontario, that could actually, he could actually land the jet on. He also bought it from South America. It's secondhand, you know. He got a bargain, 28 point something million for this luxury private jet. They showed pictures of the inside of it. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. Yeah, and coming up from South America. Now, given what that comment was about his brother being into cocaine and stuff, yeah, well, Dougie Ford, when he was in high school or that, he sold drugs as well. Yeah, and that's not hearsay. That's a fact. So South America, airplane, cartels. Are there some dots here we should be connecting? Yeah, who knows? He's been screwing us around since he's got a majority government, so he'll be with us for a while longer, leading the party, and he is just spending our taxpayers' money left and right, and not on the things he should be spending it on. He's got developers. He's in the back pocket of a bunch of developers as well. I could go on and on about him, but we'll leave it at that. He's a crook. Put it that way, he is Trump in training, a mini Trump. We've been having some floods. Residents in central and eastern Canada are on a high alert as water levels rise, specifically along the Ottawa River. Not good. This is not something we hear a lot about in Canada, but this year, with all the rain we had in the last month, and that, it is really doing some havoc to communities that are on, you know, have rivers running through them and stuff like that. And then we had a promotional stunt from a singer. You probably know him. I don't like his music. He is not somebody that appeals to me, and that is Drake. And I'll just show you the little monstrosity here that he put up as a publicity stunt for a new album. He is a great supporter of the Toronto Raptors, which is a basketball team. And outside, I think it was out front of, is it out front of theirs or is it somewhere else? Not really sure. I think it's out front of what they call Jurassic Park, which is the in front of the arena that the Raptors play in. All these huge blocks of ice. And apparently it was to promote a new album he's about to release. And somewhere in this block of ice, there was a hint at when it was going to be released. I hope he paid for all of this and it wasn't the city of Toronto paying for it, because it became a safety hazard. People were jumping up on it, and there's a lot of ice here. And ice is slippery. And, well, anyways, they declared it a danger to the general public. And so now we have the firefighters in trying to melt the ice. And that costs a lot of money to do it. They did quote something like several $1 million or something to remove this structure. So I hope that Drake is paying for all of that and not the people in the city of Toronto or Ontario taxpayers as well. Just stupid. Just utterly stupid. I do not like Drake anyways, not just his music. I don't like him. He lives outside of Toronto in a snob-ish area, very nice house, big posh. Well, he makes millions. So there you go. And speaking of making a lot of money, then we have, you know, the cost of living. And of course, basic things like cucumbers and vegetables are all surging in price, highest they've ever been in history. And we have people who cannot afford to eat. There's been a huge food bank problem, because people that don't usually go to the food bank are going to the food bank, and it's horrible. It's a horrible thing. And anybody who's got kids, a family, they just can't afford anything. I saw something, and it's not just in Canada. This is happening around the world, of course. Americans are having the same problem. The Australians are too. In fact, I saw an Australian 60 Minutes where they were interviewing families about how they are coping with the high cost of food. And what was really sad, and I think really summed it up, was one father said, they drive past a McDonald's, his daughter will say she wants a McFlurry, and he says, I can't stop and get her a McFlurry because they're $4.50. And he says, I can't afford that. And, that is sad, very sad. And it really, I think, sums up the whole crisis that Trump and his administration, with the declaring war on Iran, has put us all in. Yeah, we're at his whim, really. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on at home, but let's see if we've had any new people join us. Quilter 7939 is here. Good morning, Quilter 7939. And simply is that productable? I'd like to buy a vowel. Is here too. Russ is here, and he says, oh, look, it's Steven and chat. Happy Monday. I have Coke Zero instead of coffee. Ugh. I don't like Coke on the best of days because I don't drink pop, or as Americans would call it, soda. But yeah, coffee is my drug of choice in the morning. Hi, Charlotte. Charlotte is here too. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on around here. Okay, let's talk about the retreat that we had a little week and a half ago. I want to thank everybody for their kind comments and emails about the retreat. I was feeling sorry for myself after the retreat. Well, not really sorry for myself, but I was tired. I was really tired. And yeah, it does drain me because you don't see what's behind the scenes, and I've already explained that in a previous video, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But there is a lot of work to put it together. And there's a lot of work on the day of. I don't do any sewing that day. I actually have literally 5 monitors set up in this room, and then Walter has one set up in his sewing room as well as my backup and someone who keeps me organized for it. You know, my goal when I do a retreat is that everybody has a really good time, that they enjoy the presenters, and that it looks seamless in terms of the technology and everything else. So that takes a lot of planning. A lot of things go into that. And even though I've done it now about 8 to 10 times, I can't remember. I started them in 2021 and I do 2 a year. They still take a lot of effort. So I was thinking to myself, do I really want to continue doing these? And going back and forth with it all, I've decided, no, I am going to continue doing them. And your comments, the nice things you said about it and about the presenters and everything like that, that's my inspiration. Obviously, like I said, my goal is that people enjoy themselves, and you are, and so it's worth it. It's worth doing. I was somewhat concerned about my presenters. I didn't know if their topics were really going to appeal, but apparently they did, which was great. They were great presentations, and I really appreciated my presenters because I don't pay them because this is a free event. And they do it, you know, out of the goodness of their heart. And I really appreciate that. But you said such lovely things about them. You got so much out of the presenters, which was wonderful. I'm very happy about that. Yeah, prizes, you know, I can't afford to give really great prizes. So I hand out a lot of free patterns, but you know, I scour the internet looking for free patterns. And that's prizes. But I really appreciate people like John and Adam from Adam Sews, because they both donated prizes that day. And I did not ask them to do that. They did it out of their own volition, out of their own kindness, to do that kind of thing. So I really, really appreciated that as well. I used to give out part of some of the prizes were Amazon gift certificates, but with most of the people that come to the retreat are American, and you know, a $25 gift certificate from Amazon becomes $37.50 Canadian. So yeah, it's a little on the pricey side. Now, I have had people say, well, why don't you charge for the retreat? No, I'm not a business. I'm not set up to receive money for it. And as soon as you start taking people's money for something, the expectations of what you are delivering for that money go way up. And I don't want to have to deal with that. As it is, I do get some comments that are a little bit, let's say, critical. Constructive criticism is always good. Some people, they're not constructive, they're destructive. I tend to ignore those. But for the most part, and what I should be focusing on always, are the good comments, not the one or two nags out there. You know what I mean. Some have suggested I just do the retreat then once a year, and which, in other words, would cut down the workload. But I like doing them twice a year because it keeps the momentum up, kind of a thing. Yes, it's more work doing that, because the hardest part about doing the retreat really is finding suitable presenters. Because you have to remember, some of the big names out there, which I would love to have, they're not going to do it because their livelihood is doing presentations and getting paid for them, and they're not cheap. So yeah, again, another reason why the presenters I had, I appreciate so much, because it is taking time and they have to put effort into it. I even thought of maybe on occasion doing something that we could call a super pop-up day, which would be kind of like a retreat, but you wouldn't sign up for it or anything. And I would maybe have one speaker or something like that, or some special kind of thing. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to go to all that trouble for that, I might as well be putting that energy into doing a retreat, a full-fledged retreat. So bottom line is, I'm going to continue doing the retreats because I love doing them, and you seem to enjoy them as well. So that's worth it all. So let's see, what are people saying? Russ says, I don't like Coke anyway, but when in Atlanta. Oh yeah, I guess because that's where headquarters of Coke is, isn't it? Ruth says, Stephen, I appreciate how organized your retreats are and really like how you stay on the schedule. It's a lot of work, I'm sure, but it was a great day. Yes, and you contributed to that great day, Ruth. So again, thank you for doing your presentation. It was extremely interesting. People had a lot of questions for you, and those were questions because they were interested. So that was great. Sweet Granny's here. Hi, Sweet Granny. Joanna says she loves the retreats. And she says, I also love Wednesday sew days and pop-up sew days. Yeah. And I think I already mentioned that I'm having a pop-up sew day. Yeah, I mentioned it at the top of this. So, yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's go to new product review. Now, I haven't really bought a lot of things lately from Amazon, but I did buy something, but not from Amazon, and you're going to say, what is that? That is a light on a magnetic stand. We have something called Princess Auto up here. I think you have something that's the equivalent to that in the States. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a place that has a lot of like hardware and auto parts and things like that. And I love going in there because, well, this is where all the men go. We went there on Saturday, and I said to Walter, so this is where all the guys hang out, because it was all men, pretty much. You didn't see too many ladies in there, and there are men hovering over tools and gadgets and things like that. And they always have a lot of gadgets. Well, and I'll explain this in a moment, but I needed to do some fixing on my 3D printer, and I had to sort of crawl halfway inside of it. As far as I could get, and it's dark. And I was using my flashlight on my phone, and that wasn't bright enough. And I said to Walter, I need something that will fit into that space that's bright enough that I can see what the heck I'm doing. So we looked around at Princess Auto and saw this. This was on sale for $7.99. Takes 3 AA batteries. It's on a little stand. You can't see the stand in this picture. And the stand is magnetic. Perfect. And it works like a dream for the things I'm doing inside my 3D printer. I can see now. Why is it manufacturers have to put black screws on black parts? You cannot see where the screw is. So this is solving that problem. But I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if you've noticed this with Amazon, that Amazon has a little trick. Now, yesterday on our live, we talked about scams in grocery stores. And we listed all the different ones that are there. Well, Amazon is not free of scams either. And one of their things is when you reorder something, you can go into the history of whatever you have bought, and that history goes back years. And oftentimes, if I want the same product again, I will just go into my list of things, do a search, find it, and buy it again. Well, first of all, the price may not be the same. Yes, we know prices go up, but Amazon, and yesterday we talked a little bit about this in grocery stores, dynamic pricing, where they change the price according to supply and demand instantaneously, because everything is computerized now. And so, if there's something that people are all buying suddenly, then the grocery stores will put the price up. Yeah, they're not gouging us, right? Amazon does the same thing, especially though more on an individual basis. If you bought something in the past, say a couple of weeks ago, and you decided you want another one of the same thing, the price may not be the same. It'll probably be slightly higher. Now, the thing is, they're betting that you're going to hit that little button they have in there that says, buy again. And you go, yeah, well, I got it last time. It's the same thing. I'll hit that and bang, there we go. But there's something else they do. You're not necessarily getting exactly the same product you bought before. I'll give you my example of this, and this is what put me on to this. I bought a belt last year at some point in time. man's pant belt, right? And I like it, but I wanted another one. And the price was right at the time that I bought it, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was great. I just wanted another one. So I did the buy again. It arrived. It came in the same box with the same company name on it as the first one I bought, but this one was different. Not majorly different, but definitely could tell it was different. Not only that, it was shorter. I bought the same size. Now you're going to say, we got fat. No. I measured the belt. The old belt next to the new belt, it was slightly shorter. And as a result, I ordered another one, but I was more careful this time to get. So this other one, you know, when I get skinny again, yeah, when's that going to happen? I'll wear it. But that, I mean, it's a subtle thing. Also, the way it looked, the belt, the original belt I bought had a textured leather on it, and it had stitching, sort of like a top stitch, all the way down the sides of the belt. This one did not have the top stitching and is not textured. Little thing, but they did not say this had changed. It had the same name, it had everything. Everything was exactly the same. So I thought I was getting exactly the same thing. So now when I reorder something, I check what the price is, and I check to see, is it truly the same item? And also, it doesn't hurt to do a little shopping around before you hit that buy button. Looking for similar products, you might find something that is better in that line. So, you know, again, buyer beware. Little thing, but is it a scam? Well, maybe not a scam, but it's not completely upfront and honest either, is it? So, yeah, buyer beware, I guess. So let's see. Let's see what's people saying. Joanna says she looks forward to the retreats. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. And just give me a moment here. Oh, Judy says the other place, Harbor Freight. That's it. Yeah, that's the equivalent to Princess Auto here. Oh, Jeannie's here. Hi, Jeannie. And Ruth says, Amazon, hotels, airlines, big box stores know what our purchasing pain points are and will adjust their prices to get the highest price. We are all willing to play. Yeah, and AI is playing a major role in that now. I just saw something the other night talking about how these grocery stores are using AI now to track our trends, our shopping habits, and then doing exactly what Ruth says. They're maximizing their profit at our expense as well. I mean, okay, we can argue and say, well, this is business. This is how business works. But does it? We understand that they're not a charity, that they have to make money. But how much money is too much? Apparently, there is no limit to that. It's greed. It's just greed. And the grocery stores here in Canada keep claiming that, oh, they're not gouging us, you know, they're hardly making anything on food and that. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. Not at the way prices are increasing. And then they blame it on things like, oh, the price of gas. This is the latest one, of course, the price of gas, getting the fruits and vegetables that are out of season in our country from other places. Well, that's all costing money. Yes, it does cost us. But how much more? And how is that reflected in the price? I think we're being gouged. Well, I don't think I know we're being gouged, for sure, with all of that. That's why it's very nice to know that we are growing our own vegetables. And that's a little segue into the weather and what we're growing and things like that. But before we get there, just a quickie review of what I had up last week. Highlights from the videos last week on the Idiot Quilter. I was continuing, I've started a new series with the quilt Healing Waters, which is now available to you. Just go into the show notes. You'll find a link for the PDF pattern. And I am not doing tutorials per se. I'm taking you through the journey bit by bit of the quilt. You could sew along with it if you wished. But it's really not set up completely like that. There are elements of that, but it's not. And first thing I'm going to start with is my process for designing a quilt. And I use Electric Quilt 8 for it. I am not very good with Electric Quilt 8. I bought it some time ago, and you know, it's got a very steep learning curve, but I use what I can. You know, it's on a need-to-know basis for me with Electric Quilt. So that's what the first video that'll come out this week, tomorrow actually, how I designed that pattern with EQ8. And down the road, there'll be more parts to putting that quilt together. I think the next video will be fabric selection, and how I did all of that, because I did use indigenous fabrics. On So Chatty, we were continuing our series on Accuquilt, and this time showing you the smallest of the Qube blocks and how I use that. Next week, we're going to look at the add-ons, which are the corners and the angles. But and then after that, I think we're going to veer a little bit away from Accuquilt. We will come back into it, but a lot of you want to see Walter's progress, his journey with free motion quilting on Lucy. So I've said to Walter, okay, are you comfortable with doing we'll record it, but him actually using Lucy, not just showing you what the end product was, but how he goes through things. And I just noticed this morning, he must have been doing some work on it last night, because he has a new set of feathers on there, and his feathers are fantastic. I mean, I am so jealous. But he's done a lot of work on this, a lot of practice, and he's not done yet, and he's enjoying it, which is even better. So when I start throwing quilts at him to quilt, works for me too. Let's see. Some comments here. Oh, Kim is here, East Coast Kim. And Rachel says, supermarkets put prices up, for example, milk, but they aren't giving the poor farmers any more. That's right. They're not. That's the gouge. Kim says, could Walter show us how to do the grass pre-germination? Well, I'll talk to him about it, and we'll see what he thinks. Yeah. So, oh, I hear him munching around. Excuse me for a minute. Are you on your way? Okay, bye. It's off to the doctor. Yeah. So, let's see here. What are we up to now? Yeah, coming events, Sewing with Stephen with me. Wednesdays, as always, links in the show notes, and I've already mentioned the pop-up sew day on May the 2nd. Rachel says you could do a full video showing all your quilts. Actually, I have done that in the past, but it's been quite a while, and yeah, maybe I should have a little quilt show. Maybe I will down the road. Okay, so that takes me to the weather, and I'm going to do something different this week. Usually I show you, let me just find the right thing here. I'm going to show you from my Ring camera live what it's looking like outside right now. Here you go. That is live. And look at that sky. The trees are budding out. We have a couple of more warm days. We're going to have leaves on that. You know, and I always love it because suddenly those trees in front of our house, one day they're buds, the next day, boom, they're all leaves. And it's so nice. You can see the grass is getting greener. Walter was saying he wants to do some yard work, clean up the yard, and I don't do that. He's my gardener as well. Yeah. And get that all cleaned up before we take off for Japan. Neighbor next door is going to look after our yard while we're gone for about 16 days, and he'll probably cut the grass and all of that. So anyways, yeah, that's a live view looking out at the front, and it looks like it's going to be a nice day. And according to the weather app on my phone, it is 10 degrees C right now, but it's going to go to a high of 17. So in Fahrenheit, that's about, about 64 degrees Fahrenheit, 64, 65 degrees. So very nice. And after this live is over this morning, whenever that will be, I'm going out for my walk. and it's always nice to go out for a walk on a nice day. So that's how our weather is looking right now. So let's talk about what we have growing. And I didn't have any pictures of what's growing, but I do have some pictures from last year. Now, you know, our grow lights are fine. Everything is growing okay. We've got tomatoes coming out of our yin yang, little like grape style tomatoes kind of a thing. There's peppers pretty much ready now to be harvested as well. Peppers take a long time. They take about 80 days to, you know, get them to the state where you can actually eat them. But our garden last year, this is what we do. We don't put the garden in the ground. We put it out on our deck, which is about 1 story above our backyard, and we do container gardening. And so this was last year, and I always look forward to this because everything looks so great. Now, this was taken probably in late August or so. The tomatoes were starting to get a little icky looking, but other things were doing not too badly here. You can see these are peppers in here, and yeah, that's what we had. So I'm looking forward to this again, and I said to Walter, I think we need to put in more stuff this year, and keeping in mind things that I can pickle or we can freeze. Like the peppers, we'll make stuffed peppers and freeze those. And we'll often take the peppers too and cut them all up and put them in a little baggie, put them in the freezer. And then when you're making a stir fry or you need something that you're baking or cooking, whatever, you can throw them in. You have them handy for that. I pickle the jalapenos and hot peppers as well. They're great, I find, for throwing into salads. Throw them in with your eggs. Kind of thing. I often make what I call a breakfast burrito, where I, you know, cook a couple of eggs, and I do my eggs in the microwave, by the way, for that, sort of like an omelet, but I'll throw in some of the pickled hot peppers in there as they're cooking in the microwave, and, you know, put those into our burrito. I use them in lots of things, and yeah, and they stay good. For I've got jars from last summer still in the fridge down here, all sealed and everything, and they're still fine. So I want to do more of that kind of thing, especially given the prices of everything. And you can see some of the green peppers here. Green peppers are astronomical in price right now. We did try to grow cantaloupes last year, and actually we planted those a little late, and I said to Walter, we should try them again, but plant them a little earlier, because we got kind of like 2-bite melons on them, but they were good. And cucumbers, I want to grow more cucumbers, and the cucumbers climb up the side of our privacy lattice that's one side, and yeah, so they're growing vertically, and they do very well with that. So yeah, maybe make some pickles if I get enough of them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And of course, Walter is going to start more things for the garden under the grow lights as well. Got to get on with that, because we're at that point in the year where if you're going to start something from seed, you need to have done it. Well, actually, we should have started it at the first of the month, I think, for that. Okay, so let me go back here. Let me take this over here, and let me come back. A lot of buttons here to push, people. Bear with me. Let's go to... Oh, one thing I forgot to show you that I am working on as well. So I'm working on 3 projects at once here. I'm working on the Alaska quilt. I just cut out pieces for that. I'm going to work this Wednesday on the sew day on that. I'm working, of course, on the second star to the right, and I'm also working on this because it was on sale and I love it. This tote bag. It's an In the Hoop project from Urban Threads. It was expensive. I mean, I would never have paid $47.92 for this, and that's American. So Canadian, it would be $500,000. And so it was on for, you know, roughly half price, $23.96. That came out to about $37.50 Canadian. but it looks gorgeous. Someone asked me when I showed this yesterday, said, how big is it? It's about 16 inches wide by 13.5 inches tall. You do all the panels in the hoop, and then of course you have to use your conventional sewing machine to sew it all together. And I think it's a really cool looking tote. So that's the other project I'm working on right now. And let's go, okay, go here. So, let's see, do we have anybody else coming in? Ruth needs to scoot. My day is about to get busy. Hope everyone has a good start to your weekend. Okay, bye, Ruth. Thanks for coming. Charlotte says, I used my Accuquilt for cutting all the 2.5-inch pieces for your panel pattern. I have the die that cuts 9. So that's a good thing to use. Actually, to be honest, I didn't use the Accuquilt at the time because when I was developing the pattern, I don't write the pattern first. I write it while I'm playing around with pieces. So I didn't really know how many pieces I would need, but that's great idea, Charlotte. Joanna says, nice and sunny, should be 67 today where she's at. So that's, yep, nice. Rachel says, lovely and sunny here. All the trees are coming to life, which is lovely, but a nightmare for me. Hay fever is hideous and brings on my hay fever related asthma. I still love spring though, which reminds me, I got to start popping my Claritin pills. I don't really have allergies, but my ears with the pollen and things will start to plug up, and I don't want plugged up ears when I get on the plane. And even when the plane lands, my ears, it takes them a day to, you know, stop having that echo chamber in your head. And I find if I pop Claritin about 5 days before a flight or so each day, then that lessens it. Heather says, I'm flying to Toronto on Thursday and weather's looking good. I'm off to a cross-stitch retreat in Brampton for the weekend. Well, that'll be nice, Heather. Henry says, my other half has an allotment. Nothing better than fresh produce straight from the ground. Yep. Yep, it's great. Our problem with if we were to put a garden in the backyard, and we're still thinking about doing it this year. I don't know how far we'll get. Bunnies. We have bunnies in the backyard because we back onto a forest, and we do have a fence, but it doesn't matter. Bunnies dig holes and go through. They tunnel. And, you know, I could just see if we were growing things like carrots or whatever, the bunnies will be right in there munching on them. And I really don't want to have to put up like chicken wire or something like that around it because that just looks ugly. But we'll see. And we do have raccoons as well, and they like to enjoy, and skunks. So, you know, we might have all kinds of critters in the backyard, you know, enjoying the buffet. So I don't know if we're going to do that or not. That is one reason why we have them in containers up on top of the deck, because the bunnies can't climb, the skunks can't climb, and the raccoons can, but they don't seem to bother us. The only thing that bothers us is the odd squirrel that comes along and decides to eat a tomato or two. And what they do is they take one bite out of the tomato and leave it on the railing of the deck, just to let us know they were there. Those are nasty little buggers. And the chipmunks do the same thing too. Cute as hell, but they can be destructive. Okay, so that's all about the grow lights. Okay, 3D printing. Let's turn our attention to what's going on here. A lot, actually. So, on Wednesday Sew Day, I think it was Sue. Sue put me onto these things. She saw these caps for mason jars that have a slot in them. And I'm not sure if she saw them as 3D prints, but they were a great idea, I thought, like for putting in your spent needles and things like that, and possibly even rotary blades. And I thought, well, I'll look and see if I can print these out. And yes, I found these caps that fit on mason jars. And I got thinking, what can you do with these? Well, you know how sometimes you need an extra spool holder for your thread? Some people stick the spool of thread in a coffee cup and pull it out from that. But this is a variation on that idea. You pull the thread up through the slot in the lid, and your thread stays in place, and it serves as, you know, a spare spool holder when you need it. Another things I got to think of, well, what else can you pull through the hole? Well, how about ribbon? You know, put your ribbon in. Now you might, in depending on the size of your mason jar, I just had this size of mason jar, so I couldn't put the whole like reel in that, but if I had a bigger mason jar, you might, and you can pull that out. And how about your binding? Yeah, good idea. And I'm sure there's 101 other things you could do. So I did some more exploring, and lo and behold, these cute little mason jars that I can print on my printer. And these could come in handy for all kinds of things. So these are going to be part of the gifts that I make every year for the ladies at my local quilt store. So, and I think they're just cute, and I think you can find, you could keep buttons in them, loose change, whatever, all kinds of things for that. So, yep, where there's a 3D printer, there's always something that you can make. And this is just shows you the top. Now, I bought a special plate, build plate, that actually leaves a design on whatever is flat on the plate. This one doesn't show up very well, but they're kind of shiny. This one didn't work as well as it could have, but just, it's kind of a cute little extra feature for it. Then I found these. This is a bobbin holder, and it looks like a spool of thread, and your bobbins all fit in here. And this drops down on top, and you give it a little, you can tighten it, and it locks it so it won't fall off. So I'm making a bunch of these to give to the people that I sew with, Walter's group that I sew with, the club sewers, as I call them, the next time we get together to sew one day. So yeah, and they may become Christmas gifts as well. And then this. You know that I make these fluval creations. I've made Dracula's Castle, the theater, the haunted house, the Christmas mansion, Santa's toy shop, the Up house from the movie Up, and the Tuscan Villa, and the Gypsy Caravan one. I love this guy's models. You pay for them. There's a charge, but they're well worth the money, and they're not that expensive. So this one is a trolley and the trolley station. Now, the thing with this one is you can actually drop, it's a Lego motor. And he shows you how to do that. I priced the Lego motor, and it was difficult to get my hands on, and it was quite expensive. And he even has 3D printed tracks. So you can make this whole thing into a, you know, a remote controlled train system. You can make more trolley cars and the whole bit for it in the station. I just had no place to put that kind of thing. I would have loved to have done it. Because I've always been fascinated with model train sets and things like that, but I just don't have anywhere where I can set it up. So, no. But there are lights in this. You can see these little street lights. They light up. Now, they are not 3D printed. He has two versions, one where you print these lights, but they don't light up, or he told you a site where you can go and pick these up. It was on Amazon. I picked these up, and so they're all wired in, and you can't see it here, but there's another light in this ticket booth that lights up this little window here. The picture's not really showing that. And I've put them on a timer as well. One of those ones, you know, controls for outlets that you can run from your phone and set them up, and they all come on then. But it's kind of crowded where I have it because this is on top of one of our speakers for the television set downstairs in the rec room. But I love his models. They are great. Thing is, I have run out of room, and he comes out with another one, which he probably will. I'll want to make it. Then I've got to figure out where I'm going to put it. Well, I'll find someplace, I can tell you that, because I love making them. And let's go here. And let me take that off the screen. And let's see. So before I start talking about the big problem with the 3D printers, let's just see what people have to say. Go down. Rachel says she really likes the bobbin holder. Yeah, I think it's cute. And Dubrovka says, we're flying to Toronto next week for a short vacation. We'll be checking out the Keg Mansion, the one you and Walter visited. Yeah, that's on, what street's that? Not Jarvis. It's over about 2 blocks over west of Yonge Street, and it's the north part of Yonge Street. Well, not that far up along by Carlton Avenue. That is an intersection on there. But yeah, I liked it. I'd never been there before until, Walter's birthday. So yeah. And Kim asks, are those all glued together? Yes and no. Some of the parts just snap together. Some of the parts you have to glue together. And I have finally got a glue that works properly and dries relatively quickly. Well, I've used this glue for a while, but it took forever to dry. And I found out, yeah, a little dab will do you. I was using too much. I didn't need that much. So once I figured that out, yeah. And they go together so well. This guy, the way he engineers these pieces, he is obviously an engineer, and he is somebody who knows how to use AutoCAD programs, because the pieces, the tolerances of them, they fit together like a glove on your hand. They're so great. Okay, so let's talk about problems with my printer. Now you can see just over my corner off to the side over here, there's this printer I'm about to speak about. This is my first Bamboo X1C printer, and it has been a great workhorse. All of my Bamboo printers have been. I love them. I seldom have any major problems with them. And then this happened. So I think I showed you a week ago or so that I had a tangling of filament inside my AMS unit. It was a mess. Didn't know this had happened, and that was causing me grief. Filament wasn't being pulled into the printer properly, and so finally I took the AMS apart, and oh yeah, that's my problem. Fixed it all up, got it working, and it was fine. But I was still having this problem where I'd get started on a print, everything was working fine, but when it had to switch colors, it would pull in the filament, and there's a process. What it does is it pulls in filament, the new filament, pulls the old filament out, pushes in the new filament pushes out what is left over inside of the hot end, where the stuff goes through, pulls it back out, then pushes it back in again. It's called purging, and away it goes with the new color. Well, it wasn't doing that. It was trying to put the new filament in, but something was stopping it, like a block or a clog, and it would pull back out, and it would try this 4 or 5 times and then just give up and give me an error message saying it couldn't. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Why is this happening? Well, long story short, I got in there and I started taking it apart piece by piece. I watched a ton of videos, read a lot of articles about this problem, and people had all kinds of suggestions for why the filament was clogging. I tried all of those things. I still couldn't get it to work. It was difficult to look inside the printer. That's why I bought the light I showed you earlier, and that helped a great deal. So I came to the conclusion that the problem was the extruder itself, which is basically a little gearbox that pulls in the filament and pushes the filament back out. Something may have been clogged in there. So I took it all apart. There wasn't a clog in there, but I figured, well, I've got it all apart, I might as well clean it. So I did. Blew out dust and things like that. Again, there wasn't much of that, but these machines are very sensitive, and they have a lot of sensors in them that, as soon as a sensor gets triggered, things stop working. It's kind of a safeguard in them. So I took that all apart, and I learned a great deal in the process. I learned what the basic components are, and 3D printers are not that complex. Essentially, they have a heating element, they have a gear system that pulls in and pulls out the filament. The heating element heats up what they call the hot end, the nozzle, and as it's pushing the filament through, that's what makes your model. Okay, yes, there's a computer program involved too to tell it what to do, but it's basically mechanically very, very simple. So I pulled that apart, cleaned it up. That didn't solve the problem. There's something called a sensor filament that is basically a little magnet on a hinge, which when the filament goes in, it opens up and then it closes. And in that process, the machine knows, okay, you've got filament in here, and away it goes. Well, they said that could be sticking. So I cleaned that all out, whatnot. Didn't look like it was sticking to me, but I cleaned it anyways. And so my conclusion was I need new sensor filaments and I'll replace them. So I ordered a couple. They were really inexpensive. They were about $13 Canadian a piece. So I figured I'll order one to replace in this and have one as a spare. Okay. So in the meantime, I haven't got that yet because I ordered them on the weekend. So maybe sometime this week those will arrive. But in the meantime, I can continue to experiment. Walter said, maybe it's a problem with the AMS. And I said, well, it could be, but I have two AMSs on there and it's doing it with both of the AMSs. And I don't know why that is. He says, well, why don't you just connect one AMS up and try that with a color change and see if you're still having the problem. And that's his logical mind, you know, because he was a computer programmer and a whole bit. So he breaks everything down into, you know, try this first and don't try a whole lot of things at once, which is good advice. So I tried that. Nope, still having the problem. So my conclusion was it is not the AMSs that are giving the problem. It is something internally in the printer. So I thought, well, maybe it's the nozzle itself. So I took that out and I put a brand new one in because I had some spare parts. Although I had put this new nozzle in not too long ago, so I got thinking, well, I doubt it's that. But I did have one that I got from them once that was defective. Maybe the one I put in was defective as well. Didn't look it, but I thought I'd try it. Nope, that didn't make a difference. The last resort, and this was something that went through my mind at the beginning of this whole process. When you attach your AMS printers, the color changers, to the printer itself, you have long tubes that connect those to the printer, and the filament runs through the long tubes. Now, the tubes I had were relatively long given the location of the printer and what space I had. And it did flash through my brain early on that maybe this was creating too much friction. And because this filament sensor, if it feels that there's friction, there's something tugging, it will stop pulling filament through. It's a safety thing. But I thought, no, they're not that long. On one of my other printers, I have fairly long tubes, haven't had any problem whatsoever with it. Did some more research. That came up. That was a possibility. I thought, well, what the hell? I have to do a reconfiguration of how things are. So I did that. I shortened the tubes and the whole bit. Guess what? It works. That's the problem. It was something as simple as that. In the meantime, I've ordered two filament sensors. I have ordered a new complete hot end assembly with the gears and everything. And I ordered something else. So I'm going to have a lot of spare parts coming this week for the printer, which I don't need, but it's good to have them on hand anyways. So yeah. So why am I telling you this? Because a lot of people think that 3D printers are plug and play. And for the most part, the new ones, especially the bamboos, are. However, they have computer components and they have mechanical components. So they do have to have some maintenance. Not much, but some. And you may have to learn how to replace parts. Luckily with bamboo printers, not sponsored, they have lots of videos and lots of wiki information about how to replace anything on the printers, which are extremely helpful. It's another reason why I like the bamboo line of printers, because of that. So yeah, if you're going to get into 3D printing, be prepared for, you may have to learn how to repair your own machine, because you sending one of these things back for repair, yeah, it's not going to happen. No, they're too big. They're too heavy. It would cost you an arm and a leg to send it back to the company, which is in China. And right now, you might be able to find a third-party company, that deals with 3D printers that might be able to repair it for you. It's best to learn for yourself. And, quite frankly, I've learned a lot by doing that about how these things really work. And as I said, they're not that complicated. So I thought I'd share that with you. So let's see some comments here. Let's see. Charlotte says, yes, perfect for binding the jar. I also found another thing that, well, I didn't find it. I've known about it and have printed them before, and I have shown them on the Idiot Quilter, and tomorrow I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to show you the spool that you wind your binding around. I was using it wrong. Somebody on the sew day showed me how to use it right. So, yeah. So I'm going to show that on Idiot Quilter tomorrow. Let's see here. Rachel says, you'll have to print yourself an outdoor chalet to house all your prints. Yeah, for sure. Kim wants to know what kind of glue. Well, it's basically super glue. It's called CV. You can buy it, but it's super glue. CV stands for some chemical process, but it is basically what's in super glue, and you can buy it on Amazon. Okay, so let's see. All right, speaking about 3D prints, I thought I'd look at, what are the trends in 3D printing these days? And AI, of course, like everything, AI is in everything these days. We can't escape it. So they say artificial intelligence is used for generative design, real-time quality monitoring, and defect prediction. AI removes the barrier of complex 3D modeling by allowing text to 3D model generations. Yes, AI is doing a lot of really wonderful things in the 3D printing community. You don't need to necessarily know how to use an AutoCAD type program for designing things. You can go in, and it's just like if you went into ChatGPT and said you wanted a graphic and said, I want a graphic showing, someone creating a quilt, and it'll create this for you. Well, it will do that now with 3D models. Now, I haven't really tried it extensively yet to tell it. There are still flaws with it, but yeah, makes it even more 3D printing more accessible to the general community. You basically say to your computer, it's like Star Trek, a replicator. You say, okay, 3D print, hot, Earl Grey, bang, and it makes it. Yeah, almost, not quite, but it's getting there. Of course, they're getting faster. When I first got my very first 3D printer, to print something very simple took a day and a half. It was as slow as hell. Now, that same kind of print in the ones I have now might take a couple of hours. So they're just getting progressively faster. Eventually, they will become so fast, it'll be like, okay, I need this, great. Put it in, 2 minutes later, I have it. It's done. They will. It will get to that point. Of course, they're being used for mass production and manufacturing now. I've talked about that before. They're even building houses with 3D printers, really big ones, and they use concrete, but it's there. And they're even using it in medical science. Now, for creating body parts, like you lose an ear, have a 3D printer print you one. And these are printing them out of tissue, okay? Not plastic, tissue. Yeah. But the key thing here is the sustainability that I mentioned before and materials. All right, 3D printing does use a lot of plastic, and there is a lot of waste. You all heard me talk about printer poop, okay? And that's when the filament changes colors, and it has to purge out of the hot end the leftover from one color and put in the new, and you get poop. And you can get a lot of poop from one print, depending on how many color changes you have. Now, they've started to develop machines that are tool exchangers, they're called. And basically, they have a whole bunch of hot ends lined up. They load each one with a different color of filament. You still need something like an AMS for that. But now what happens is, instead of having to purge out the filament from the nozzle, they just slide over, drop the one nozzle, pick up the new nozzle that's already preloaded with color in it, and away they go. So you get a lot less poop. But nevertheless, there's still a problem with, what about failed prints? bad ones. What do you do with those? So people have been working with this, grinding it up back up in a variety of ways. Some people grind it up in blenders or modified blenders, or they build these little devices that they put an electric drill on, and it grinds up all the bad parts into smaller pieces, and then they have to heat them up and melt them together, and then they have to push it through some kind of tubing or whichever that shapes it and all that. And of course the color you get, because you're mixing other colors, because if you're using like poop, for example, in there or whatever, well, you know, you mix all the colors together, what do you get? Gray, black kind of a thing, or brown. And that's not really something you, unless you're going to print all of your prints in that color, that's not really feasible. Well, people have been working on these, and Creality has come out with one right now. They're doing a one of those fundraiser kind of things for it, but here it is. They have a working prototype, and it looks very slick in this picture. So basically you put your bad prints in here, it grinds them all up, and it goes through into this machine, and it extrudes it out of this device here, heats it all up. Sorry, this is your grinder. Then you put those ground up pieces, you put them in this little hopper here, kind of like a coffee grinder in a coffee machine, and it melts it down and extrudes it through this tube to make it the right size, and there it winds it on a spool, which is here. This is the principle behind it and the way it's supposed to work. Now, I have seen some live demonstrations of the prototype on YouTube, and it looks wonderful. Price-wise, well, they'll probably be kind of pricey as once they come out. Ignore what they're showing here. This is in Hong Kong dollars that they're raising, so I'm not sure how much a Hong Kong dollar is next to a Canadian or American dollar. It's probably pennies, so it's not $46,670,672 for this. But this is for, they're trying to raise money here to develop this further. I can tell you one thing: when they get it perfected, and there's other companies working on this too, on this technology, and it becomes affordable for the average user like a couple of $100 or whatever, I will be buying one, because I really hate throwing out plastic prints into landfill. But I have no place to put it, and I have no other use for it. I've tried different ways to use your poop creatively, but it just makes too much poop. I can't keep up with the poop. Sort of thing. So yeah, but this is a step in the right direction. If they truly work well, and they will, they'll work out the bugs on these things. I would say probably within a year's time, there will be one that I will probably be able to invest in for it. And I will be very happy about that, because, well, I try to protect the environment as much as I can, but I feel very, very guilty about how much plastic material I've been putting into landfill with this hobby. So yeah, so stay tuned for that, whenever that will be. Okay, so let's just go back here and pick up. I think I'm pretty much done. As I told you, this is a two-pot coffee kind of session. Let's just finish up with any comments or questions people have. Rita's Crystal Dragon Creations is here. Hi, Rita. And she says, so 3D printing today is not really feasible in terms of just personal use due to the amount of plastic. Well, no, yes or no. It depends on how you feel about, you know, environmental issues. If you are a die-hard, I recycle everything, I am lessening my footprint on this planet, all that kind of stuff, you might not be happy with 3D printing. However, 3D printing, as I said, has become plug and play. The bamboo printers, when you take them out of the box, they're ready to go. There is really no assembly required, just a lot of packing material, because they pack them well, to remove. You can be up and printing your first print within 15 minutes of taking it out of the box. Whereas my very first 3D printer about 5 years ago, a Creality Ender, it took us half a day to put it together, because we had no idea what we were doing, and we were watching videos and we were yelling at each other through it all. And then it took us another half day before we could to get the bed leveled and do all the things you had to do before we could do our first simple print. With these new ones now, and bamboo's not the only one, there's a whole bunch of manufacturers out there, including Creality as well, that it's all plug and play. So really, it is definitely accessible, and the prices have come down a great deal. I mean, bamboos may seem expensive because they're over $1,000 for the ones that I have. You can get one that's a little cheaper than that, the A1. It's smaller, but does a really great job for less. Great maybe as a beginner machine. So, you know, they're accessible to everybody now. And more people have them in their homes. And a lot of people are trying to make them into a home industry as well. That, I don't know how well that's going to work out. But, you know, but right now they are very accessible. Rachel says, tech is amazing, but it sometimes just gives me palpitations. I'm not patient, so if things don't go to plan immediately, well, I'm kind of that way too. But sometimes you have to step back from it and breathe and then start figuring out the problem. And I have found, if you think about it, if you go to the multitude of resources on the internet and on YouTube, you can pretty much figure out most problems, how to fix them yourself. Rita says, wonder if it would be useful to make like craft beads out of plastic extra stuff. You can do that, and I have seen people do that. Beaders will make their own custom beads. And yes, you could, well, you can't make it right now out of the like poop and things like that. But there would be ways that you could cut down on that poop by, you know, there's things you can set up where it'll print two things at the same time, but what it's doing is it's using the stuff that would become poop for the secondary piece that you're making. So yes, that is a possibility. Jen says, Stephen, off topic, do you add oil to your M7? I have an M7, but I've never added oil. Yes, I do. You oil it. There's only one spot you need to oil your M7, and that's when you lift the bobbin case up out of the machine. There's a little wick dead center in the holder for the bobbin, where the bobbin sits in. You put 1 drop of oil on that. You should do that. Well, the M7 will come up and tell you that it needs to be cleaned, and when that comes up, do it then. But I do it more regularly than that usually, but only 1 drop, because the excess oil that the wick cannot absorb will drop down inside your machine, and things get a little ooky in there with fuzz and things like that. Now, I used to take my machine in once a year to be serviced at my local quilt store, where they will open it up, clean it all out inside, and do any oiling inside of it. But there's very little to oil inside the machine or grease, because they're all sealed units inside. But I have learned how to take apart my M7, and I did a video about this some time ago, probably about 6 or 8 months ago. It's somewhere on my channel under the Idiot Quilter playlist in there. And yeah, it's not a difficult thing to do on your own at all. I took a course, Sewing Academy. You can check them out online. They're an American business. And they are excellent, and I paid for a course on how to do general maintenance and go inside your machine and do troubleshooting and cleaning and oiling and all that kind of stuff. But for the average person, all you need is just to clean your machine regularly with a soft brush, clean out all the dust bunnies and things like that around it, and give it 1 drop of oil on that little wick, and you should be good to go. Rita says, so the poo stuff cannot really be used for other things without further grinding or something. Pretty much, Rita. If you notice behind me, the flashing lights, in behind where it says Walter and Stephen, there are a couple of little boxes that I printed on the computer or on the printer, and they have cutouts in them of shapes. You can't really see them the way I have them displayed there. They're filled with printer poop, and there's some lights in behind them, and it's sort of like an art display. But I generate more poop than making those. I couldn't make enough of those for it all. Some people will take the poop and actually melt it down. They will melt it down in using a heat gun, and then they get silicone molds and they put them in silicone molds and they make new things. The problem with that is they can give off more fumes than they normally do when you're melting that stuff down. I don't think that's really good for your health. That's another aspect I have talked about before about 3D printing. Depending on the filament you're using, the type of filament, there can be fumes, and some filaments need to be vented to the outside air. I primarily only use the most basic of filaments called PLA, which doesn't give off really many fumes at all, or particulate microscopic plastic into the air. And I have a air filter that sits right by them as well that does a really good job of extracting that kind of thing out there. So yes, there are some health hazards in this. That's not to scare you off. If you're careful and get things set up the proper way, you should be okay. And PLA is actually a derivative of cornstarch, so it's almost a natural product. But you do you. You know, you have to weigh all of these factors into that. Yeah. Now, when I say there's fumes, it's not like you're walking into this whoa kind of thing. Like, there's more fumes if you open up or you spray air freshener in your air than there are from the 3D printers that I am using. They also have filters built into them, charcoal activated filters, and in some cases HEPA filters as well, which, you know, sucks that stuff through them. So that helps too. Is it going to be absolutely 100% free of any of that? No, not at the present time. But again, that's something else that they're working on too. Self-contained filter systems that you can buy them now. They're expensive. They're about $600 or $700. And basically, they attach to your printer through a venting system and supposedly purify the air that goes in there. They have HEPA filters and charcoal filters and all kinds of different filters and that kind of thing. The verdict is still out whether or not these things are a gimmick or really they really work. So yeah. Okay, Joanna, thanks for coming. We'll see you later. All right. Well, anyways, on that note, I think it is time to say goodbye. We've been on here for an hour and 45 minutes. So thank you all for joining me this morning, keeping me company. I hope you found it an enjoyable experience. Looks like we had about 61 of you right now in chat, but according to the views, there's been 213, so that's pretty darn good. Tune in tomorrow for the next episode of the Idiot Quilter, and then on Friday for So Chatty, and then of course on Sunday for our last live before we go to Japan. And of course, I had the Sew Day on Wednesday with me always, and pop-up Sew Day this coming Saturday. So all kinds of things to partake in if you so desire. So have a good week, everybody, and we'll talk to you real soon.